I wanted to give you a little help with the three poems that will be covered on the test and that you are supposed to have um, analyzed for this assignment. And so just to kind of fill in the gaps, I did, for those of you who did upload a poetry analysis on one of the poems, I did give you some feedback. And I didn't expect you necessarily to understand everything. This is sort of a crash course in analysis. And the way that I like to explain it to students, because a lot of students feel like when you start doing this kind of thing, you just take the life out of poetry. They may not like it to begin with, but they feel like it just sort of takes the life out of poetry. But quite frankly, this is the way that you sort of gain a greater appreciation of what's happening. You can certainly read something and enjoy it and not have to understand everything or how it's put together, and that's wonderful. But for our purposes, and if nothing else, this really hones your critical thinking skills, to be able to sort of critically analyze something, to look at its pieces, and then discuss what's happening in the poem. Um, you know, that's a little bit of the nature of this course. So we're going to start with love and friendship. Now, first of all, love and friendship, those are the subjects of the poem, but those are not the themes. The theme is the point that the poet wants to make about love and friendship. Also, please remember that you never assume that a poem is autobiographical. You may know some things about Emily Bronte and what her love life was like, or for friendships or whatever, but unless you know directly, specifically, you've read something that essentially states that this poet was writing about her life, you assume that poets create personas, they create speakers, and there can be a male poet who creates female speakers. For example, I'm thinking of Langston Hughes' poem Mother to Son, where he adopts the voice of a mother talking to her son. Emily Dickinson created all types of speakers to talk about different experiences, and that's where a poetic imagination comes in. So you never just assume this is the poet speaking. And once again, I went over that in that lengthier video. So please be sure and look back at that on poetry analysis. Be sure and look back at that. And that poem that was analyzed, One Art, that you will be responsible for understanding that on the test. And so the way that you do that is by watching that video as well as reading the poem. All right, so love and friendship in this case, we're going to try and figure out what point the speaker is trying to make about love and friendship. And from reading the poem, one of the things that we know is that the speaker is someone who's experienced. He or she speaks as though someone who's perhaps, at least if not older, at least more experienced, talking to people who are less experienced, perhaps younger, or at least have never sort of had this type of situation to which the speaker refers. Okay, now this is a simile. Love is like the wild rose briar. A simile is is not as strong as a metaphor. It uses words like or as or resembles to make a comparison. And it's not the same thing as saying love is a wild rose briar. Notice how much that's more direct, that's a little bit more powerful, a little bit more impactful. Similes are more suggestions of comparison. All right. So love is like a wild rose briar. Also, please notice, love is like, this is considered alliteration. If you have words that are close together, that can begin with the same consonant sound, that's alliteration. Friendship, like the holly tree. The holly is dark when the rose briar blooms. That's alliteration. Briar and blooming, okay? But which will bloom most constantly? By the way, this is one of the patterns of this poem, and there are a couple of things you could say, but question answer would probably be the primary pattern for this particular poem, all right? The wild rose briar is sweet in spring. Once again, alliteration. Sweet in spring. It's summer blossoms scent the air. You've got a lot of S's going on here. Summer blossoms scent. That's alliteration. Yet wait till winter, again, alliteration. And what the alliteration does in this poem is it creates a certain rhythm. It's got a very regular meter to it. And that's created through this use of alliterative words, okay? Yet wait till winter comes again, and who will call the wild briar fair? And again, you have a lot of W's, okay? So you end with the question. Then, now this is the turn of the poem right here, then, okay? Because at that point, the speaker is signaling a change. And once again, if you can find the turn in a poem, you can open it up and understand, get a little bit better understanding of what's happening. Then, scorn the silly rose wreath now. Okay, and deck thee with the holly sheen, that when December blights thy brow. Now, once again, we've got some alliteration, and these are this harsh cacophonous sounds blighting the brow. That's almost like beating, if you think about it. Blight and brow, those are hard words, and it's creating like this whole idea. It's actually mirroring the effect that the speaker wants you to get from this. Now, December blighting a brow, to blight something means to beat, all right? And so, or to darken or to hit. So December, the month of December is being personified here as something that's beating up, right, on someone. He may leave, and here's how we also know that it's personification. You've got the word, my marker is not working. He may leave thy garland green, more alliteration. Now, the suggestion here, and this is how we know the theme, then scorn the silly rosebush. This tells us, first, the wild rose briar kind of blooms faster. The holly is dark when the rose briar blooms, so it kind of gets all the attention. But which will bloom most constantly? And here's the question this poem seeks to answer. Which one's got the staying power? Which one's going to last? Love or friendship? Right? When things get tough. And that's what, of course, December would stand for. As a matter of fact, I think I mentioned in a couple of your analysis sheets, this is the some of the symbolism. You've got the symbols of the seasons. Spring is the beginning, right? Spring is when things are new and fresh and just starting out, and it just seems like endless possibility. Winter, and as December would mark the beginning of winter, of course, is when, so the idea is that when things get tough, it's the friendship that's going to last. And notice that it's a wild rose briar. Wild rose briars means it comes out of nowhere, blooms. It's not been planted and cultivated. So it kind of suggests that sort of over the top passionate love that's almost impossible to sustain. So hopefully that helps you get a better understanding of this poem. Now moving rapidly along. This is a poem that's looking back. Notice in the the fourth stanza, you've got somebody saying, since then, keen lessons that love deceives and rings with wrong, and notice that alliteration, have shaped to me your face and the God-cursed sun and a tree and a pond edged with grayish leaves. So in other words, this is a breakup poem, obviously, and most of you caught that. And all of the colors in this particular poem, like there was green in the other one, green being saying fresh and young and alive, okay? And that's symbolic as well. But in neutral tones, you've got somebody who essentially is in a relationship that's dead or dying. And you almost get the sense, because the speaker is looking back on a day where they're standing by this pond that's practically dead. The only time a sun is white is when it's overcast. Have you ever noticed that? The only time that the sun doesn't appear kind of yellow or some color is when it's through heavy clouds. As though chidden of God, that whole idea of being cursed, God cursed, right? Which it repeats again. It's like this horrible day. Notice we've got winter again, that symbolism. We stood by the pond that winter day. So once again, winter being the sort of the season when things end, when they're over, when they either at least go dormant or underground. The sun was white. That's not a color. Notice most everything mentioned in here, gray, that's another in-between color. It's not black, it's not white, it's sort of mixed together, it's gray. Notice that you have they had fallen from an ash and were gray, okay, like the leaves. So the whole idea of, and an ash comes after there's been a fire. So once again, that whole suggestion of a fire, it could be a love that once was young, and now all that's left is this smoldering ash. Now the speaker directly addressed the love interest, so there's your audience, okay. Your eyes on me were as eyes that rove over tedious riddles of years ago. The whole idea here is somebody is looking at this person, almost like trying to figure out or recall what it was he or she saw in this love interest, before, just trying to figure some tedious riddle. And tedious means just monotonous, it's got that sort of boring edge to it. The smile on your mouth was the deadest thing. Look at this. Alive enough to have strength to die. So in other words, even the facial expression is something that's death. Everything about this poem is like death of a relationship, alive enough to have strength to die. And a grin of bitterness swept thereby like an ominous bird a wing. And with the word ominous, that's kind of the idea of a bird of prey, that's looking for something that's dying, a bird that eats carrion, like a vulture, right, circling around. So that's kind of the idea you get. And notice we've got this ellipsis. That's called an ellipsis. That indicates time passing. So you've got the first period indicates the end of a sentence. The three dots after that indicate time has passed. And now you have the speaker saying, since then, keen lessons that love deceives. So in other words, you get the sense that this person did not see this coming necessarily, or didn't realize the relationship was in such a bad shape. And that love deceives would indicate that perhaps the speaker was not prepared for what was happening. And so it's only afterwards that, suddenly looking back, the speaker can see clearly that there was nothing left there on that day. And rings with wrong, you've got more alliteration there. Notice that it creates a rhythm. Rings with wrong have shaped to me your face and the God-cursed sun. And this is all that's left of that relationship and those memories, was the fact that even the sun wouldn't come out, an ashy tree, a pond edged with, and here's the gray again. Everything either dying or almost dead. Okay. All right. Last poem, Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. No one really attempted to interpret this one, and the key idea here is, if you look at massive weight of Uncle's wedding band and sitting heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand, and when she is dead, she's not dead yet. But notice these are terrified hands. So all that reference to hands and the idea of the wedding band and the idea of joining hands as in a marriage. Notice still ringed with ordeals she was mastered by. So you get the sense that this was a hard, harsh relationship. And Jennifer is basically overwhelmed by it, and a victim of it. But the way that she finds some type of relief or life is in this needlework that she's doing. Aunt Jennifer's tigers, notice they belong to her. And a tiger is a proud animal. It's a strong animal. It's got those vivid, talk about colors. You've got topaz being that orange color. You've got a world of green. These are strong, bright, beautiful, vibrant colors in contrast to Aunt Jennifer's life. So notice that the tigers do not fear the men, unlike Aunt Jennifer, who fears the uncle, right? This needlework that she's doing, whether it be a rug or some type of pillow or some type of design, is capturing the life that she and the person that she wishes she was, or at least the character traits that she wished she had. All in the format of these tigers. Okay, but notice, and that's what's going to be left behind, her wish, her desire. The tigers will still go on prancing because she's making this sort of piece, this sort of work of art, right? She's putting down her projected dream of what she wishes her life was like. And that desire will still last long after she is dead and gone. All right. So, notice finger fluttering. You've got some alliteration again. You've got, this is imagery, a picture of tigers prancing around in a world of green. Her finger fluttering through her wool, find then the ivory needle hard to pull. So all of those, that's imagery. You can picture that. Anything in your mind that you can picture, that's imagery. Okay. And of course, the theme of this poem has to do with a woman who cannot escape an abusive relationship, whether that be physical or emotional, we don't know, but we know that it's abusive. And so her one outlet is creating this sort of out of wool, right, out of some type of weaving. She is creating, or knitting, she is creating this world that will remain long after her. All right, hopefully this was helpful for you. Please contact me if you have any questions, and good luck on the test.